So, welcome everybody to Davos Worldwide. We are back now with Yagub Rahimov. Yagub is one of the most talented thought leaders when it comes to data and the applications that can be developed within data. Yagub has founded Polygraph AI. Polygraph AI is an amazing initiative on managing data. So, without further ado, let me turn it over to you, Yagub, and to give an introduction about yourself and a little bit about what brought the vision for Polygraph.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anand. My name is Yagub Rahimov, and I'm the CEO and the founder of Polygraph AI. But my close network generally calls me Mr. Paranoid. It is because, trust is something that you cannot just give in a silver tray to someone, especially with something that is of confidentiality, privacy, and so on. And since 2009, I've been in this world working in some sort of a action on bringing privacy, bringing confidentiality to a niche, a field that I'm part of. And today we are doing it with an amazing group of AI ML PhDs, where we build solutions on privacy, making privacy consent-based. So you control your privacy and agree who gets what data of your own, and you do it before they actually have access to it. So you control everything. So this is a little bit of a background. Prior to Polygraph, I've been in retail finance. I've done 2 startups that have exited to PE syndicate, both in Europe. I've created an industry per se, and this is shortly my background.
My apologies. So yeah, no. Today you are managing both sides of data privacy as well as data security. You have some of the most advanced thinking on both of those sides. Um, and at the same time, um, you have created Polygraph, which is, as you said, a trust mechanism. It allows trust. So talk to us a little bit about what are the current problems with data? What are you solving? What is this leading towards? Because as data expands, I mean, underneath, whether it's an AI, whether it's quantum computing, whether it's any of the advancements that we're seeing, the one constant underneath it is data. And the more easier it becomes for us to access, the more difficult it becomes to protect it.
And let's also add quant computing on it. So that also means that any encryption that there is there is obsolete already. And even if there is no quant computing, with the current hypercomputing, we see any encryption that is available to anyone can be hacked in 15 minutes, 7 hours for US Treasury. So once you understand that, you get to feel that the only private data is the data that is not out there. So it means that you haven't shared. Our vision is very different. We believe that the data that you have is divided into 2 categories. Private data that, like as an example, my flight that I'm going to be taking tomorrow, the time that I'm going to be arriving, which airport, etc. That's a private data, and sharing that to an AI tool as is, or non-AI tool, doesn't matter, anything, may possess, depending on the place that I'm going, potential challenges or problems for me, my privacy, my security. And we've seen, like, I'll give you a good example. Last year, a US executive was kidnapped in South Africa, and this person used an email summarizer. The email summarizer's API was exposed, and when he landed in South Africa, there was a gentleman with his name asking, to sit in the car, and he thought that it was arranged by the hotel that he was going to, and he went and sat in there. He was kidnapped. They had to pay, I think, 500,000 or $1 million to let go. Like, simple thing like your summarizer, sometimes that you are sharing or you're using, and you are not even thinking what data you are sharing with that solution, can create security issues and will create security issues. I mean, if you're a high school student, you may not really care about it because you're too young. We all have been. But, if you are Anand Singh, would you like some scamster knowing exactly when you're traveling, where you're traveling, how you're traveling, your passwords and everything else?
Yeah.
And this is unfortunately the reality that we are living on. And our vision, therefore, is divided into two folds: the things that I have to share and the things that I should consider. So Polygraph enables you to see your confidentiality, contextual confidentiality, in any environment, in AI, or even for your printing. Shows you where you have the confidentiality and anonymizes it in real time, that you as a user do not have to face any friction, learning curve, but that tool, that technology will not have access to your confidential data. And I'm
Yeah,
using confidential data, by the way, not private data, just only because confidentiality can also be in means. It's not a direct keyword out there.
no, absolutely. I mean, I remember one of our conversations and you saying, look, when we are on a Zoom call and we're sitting in our offices, what's in our background becomes public knowledge, right? And the beauty of some of the solutions that you're looking at is to saying, okay, how do we actually minimize the risk of accidental data breaches or confidentiality breach, and that is kind of not your normal print solution scenario of saying, okay, we won't allow this person to print, or maybe we allow this person to print but we'll track it. But you're taking it to the next step and saying, okay, even if you print it, it'll be redacted, all the confidential information, or if it's in the background and I'm not paying attention, it'll automatically get redacted. These are some very, very advanced tools that you've created in the confidentiality side of space. Um, when it comes to data confidentiality and data harvesting, on the other side of it, um, there's a there's a very, very delicate balance, because at the end of the day, you are trying to protect something which, again, somebody with some kind of technology tool is going after. Is this a constant challenge to you, or is it something that you've developed into your systems now, where you no longer have to have 50 programmers sitting there fighting firewalls?
So it's the latter in a way. Let me give you an anecdote here that happened 4 days ago. I met a pediatric that is about to use Polygraph. And this pediatric was telling that they're using AI, but they do everything to make sure that they do not transmit any patient data. And I asked him to show me one example. And he showed a challenge that he had. And the challenge was that one, he diagnosed a patient for rotavirus, and the patient basically ended up at the emergency for appendicitis. It's a 5-year-old boy. And I asked him, can you share the transcribe of it with Polygraph? 5 or so minutes later, he goes like, wait a minute. I didn't hear or see that before. So Polygraph highlighted a section of the conversation where it said, when I push the right side of my tummy, it doesn't hurt me anymore. So Polygraph understands context of importance inside. So it does two ways. It protects your privacy, and it also shows you what is important in any environment. Confidentiality is synonymous with important, correct? So with the very same doctor, I asked him, do you think that you're using this AI that you're using in a private environment? And he says, yes, absolutely. And we looked into the data again, like, so the prompt that he was utilizing was saying like 5-year-old traveled from San Francisco to Egypt with a 4-year-old sibling. The 5-year-old is having health issues, whereas the 4-year-old is not having any issues, nor mom or dad, the parents. It was actually the same parents. And then it also mentioned the month that the patient went to Egypt. So I asked him, do you think that this person is identifiable? And he says, no. And I do agree with him. In the human world, it's not identifiable, because how fast can Anand or Yagub can map it out and see that what it is? But then we showed him a little bit of a data mapping and showed him 5, 6, 7, based on their own database, potential people that could have been, and we literally finger pointed on one kid, saying that, is this the guy? And that was the person. So AI is more advanced than we are as organic human beings in mapping the data. In many cases, the data that's being mapped is beyond what we are capable of seeing it. So therefore, we got to understand the context behind it. Like we may be having a video call and sharing a background that's going to go to your data mapping. We may be sending a message, and inside it says CEO of Polygraph AI. That's part of the data mapping. And you're saying, this client says this. Again, like that's part of your data mapping and mapping and mapping.
So what you're saying, Yagub, is that metadata is no longer anonymous
Absolutely.
because AI can data map within metadata at speeds that make it real time, basically.
And it is double-edged sword. So it's great if it is being used in the right hands. But if it is being used by some hacker out there to destroy your life or your company, it's the end of the game. It is the end game. So for us, one more time, our vision and focus is to give you full control of your confidentiality and privacy, how you're using and how you're sharing it.
But then you're doing that by actually gaining context from what you're seeing, whether it's visual, whether it's data, whether it's whatever format. So you're saying is that the only way you can be protected is if you're actually monitoring all of that now, because when one walks around with a phone and gets a video call, and so now I have just given my location um, to the public of saying I'm here and this is where I'm standing and this is what I'm doing. And I may actually, somebody can actually look at patterns, right? And figure out the patterns and say, okay, this person goes here every day at this time or is around this time. And so now I've given a geomarker of saying this person will be
And here is
available
the
at this.
thing, by the way. I can pinpoint your picture location outside basically anything within 3 minutes.
Yeah, please don't. But okay, yes, I get it, and that's a very scary thought when you look at the fact that AI now add into this the future, a little bit about the future, and as we see kind of the attainability of quantum computing, where now as we see you know hot data being converted to cold data, but because there is no context to that data. But at the same time, see all of these things that are happening in processing power, in power management, in data management, in all of the advances in AI. How do you keep abreast with all of this? There, if quantum computing comes and it increases the capacity for that 3 minutes that you just said to do the thing to down to a second, or in real time, how do you keep up with that?
Your biometrics. So at the end, we are gonna go for human in the loop. Like if you are asking my vision, what's the world is gonna go to?
Yep.
We are gonna see important data going to on-prem instead of hybrid cloud, which we are seeing already, that movement happening. And there will be on the edge analytics activities like ours. Your privacy being scanned in everything that you're doing on your laptop, on your phone, uh, and giving you an understanding and full control of everything that you're doing. But it's not, the future is brighter. It's not darker. So the more data that we get this way, we also get more data on those malicious actors as well.
Right.
So law enforcement is also going to be just as much enforced and empowered. So like we have a technology right now. We call it Sophia. It's not really public yet, but so essentially speaking, with Sophia, we can map the groups and distinguish their intentions without knowing anything about their personal data, just the way they write. So just the way they write, we can define that this is a government group, this is a professional group, this group is sort of like rebel-minded young people, and this is a old group, etc. Or this group is suicidal thought. So having this kind of understanding about just the mere writing style, the verbiage, it gives the bird's eye view for certain groups to identify the threat faster, but also identify those that might be in dangerous situations, like suicidal thoughts, as an example, faster, so that we can be there for them. So we see a brighter future, not a darker future. So the very same technology can be used for good or can be used for bad. So our goal is to minimize the access to those malicious actors and empower those that are doing great jobs. And unfortunately, it was in the hands of the bad actors at the beginning. Fortunately, going forward, I think with the right group of people, it will be eliminated. And we are seeing this thing coming to reality more and more.
Last thought from you, and this is taking, kind of again an interesting thought process, which is data sovereignty, right? When we look at data harvesting from the World Wide Web, or we look at with data harvesting from any source, whether it's existing databases, whether it's paid databases, whatever it is, where's the line? Because data has no geopolitical boundaries. The web has no geopolitical boundaries. What are your thoughts on data ethics, on data sovereignty?
Which ethics? I mean, imagine, you know, you dropped $100 in the middle of Times Square, and 3 days later you came back and you're saying that, where's my $100? Can
I
you
see
find
the
it?
No, I see the analogy, but at the same time, I would say to you that should companies be able to access global data? I mean, is global data just fair play? I mean, I know it is right now, but should it be that way?
If you have shared the data online, you have already agreed for it. That's the DNA, that's the fabric of the way the internet works. So if you don't want that data to be available in there, keep it private. It's the same analogy as your
No, no. So
hundred
you're saying
dollar.
we have to read every one of Apple's disclaimers that they give us because we would spend, I think, two
No,
days just.
that's a different question. So unfortunately, again, there are companies, especially Apple and Meta and so on and so forth. They create environments for you that is misleading. You are under the impression that you are in a private area, etc., and you share it, and it's not. They're
But now you
listening.
now you've actually given consent, right? I mean, so now you've got a consent
Yeah,
side of it. So that's consent-based data. But then on the same side, as you said, we've got data that's being uploaded, whether it's not necessarily Meta using the data that we uploaded, but because now video can be searched and, as you said, geo-mapped, et cetera, it's creating more data points that are outside of the data that you gave consent to Meta. So every time you put up a picture and said, I'm here, now you in 3 minutes can tell where exactly I was, what the context of my visit was, whether I was sitting in a restaurant or whether I was on a boat or whether I was in a hotel. So now it's become a little bit more beyond even Meta's control of saying, here's some video data, which you know up until a few years ago was not something that could be used in the data mix.
absolutely. And there is also a bigger beast in the room, and unfortunately, it's in your pocket. That's
Yep.
your phone,
Yeah.
and that thing is always listening to you.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the challenges you have is that pretty much every app that you've downloaded, you have somehow or the other given it consent to do that. So there is no privacy in the sense because you are holding that tag in your hand, and that real-time data is actually being fed across multiple apps. And so it's not just that Apple knows where you are, but every app that you have pretty much means they have your data as well. In maybe in metadata, not as specific, But again, like you said, now joining metadata is super easy, and so it's a very interesting time.
Now, that's the vision that we are seeing as well. So our vision, by the way, is to have Polygraph sit on your infrastructure level and give you the full control, full consent on which one of those apps, which one of those softwares or websites, chatbots, you name it, is accessing what kind of data, and do you actually give them the access? If not, engine will, and currently still does, at least on a desktop level, anonymize the data in real time. So your engagement with that tool does not break, but they don't have any private data of yours. And if they are trying to use that for bad or good reasons, doesn't matter. They will not have any knowledge of who you are on or how you're using it.
Yeah, and it's essential, I think, to understand that, Yagub, what you have built and what your vision is about, not stopping data, but taking away the confidential data from the public view. And so it's not a seven-walled shield of firewalls that you're building, but what you're building is much, much smarter, much, much deeper, because it's creating context. Not only is it creating context, but it's utilizing that context to anonymize data that is private and confidential, so that anybody, whether it's by consent or without consent, can have access to your data in a meta form, but they are not able to use anything that you may have given up accidentally. Am I am I
Absolutely.
am I giving you the right up here?
And I don't mind your users, your listeners, our participants today, knowing that I'm in San Francisco, and if they are here, we meeting up with them. But I will have a problem with them knowing which room number and which hotel room I'm staying.
Right.
And
And
that's
that
my confidentiality.
Yeah, exactly. No, I get that. And then, so thank you again, Yagub. I'm so glad you were able to come, because we wanted to understand what the future of confidentiality and data is. And there is nobody better, I think, that I know of in the side of business. So Polygraph AI, everybody, is the future for protecting not data, but the confidentiality of your own self. And with that, Yagub, again, thank you. Look forward to talking to you soon, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, sir. Have a great day.